So like I said, I wanted to undermine the Bible, and I wanted to see things in a genetic Darwinian lens because, and in a Freudian lens and stuff, because it's in a Marxist lens, because it was anti-religion, and I saw religion as white supremacist, especially Christianity. Now, I wanted Muslims. I wouldn't mind Islam taking over Europe. I didn't mind that because I saw Muslims as more brown, and I just wanted to destroy the white race. So seeing myself as Jewish, it's like I always liked people of color. I looked at them and I'm like, I like them. But I looked at white people and I saw them as a threat. I always didn't like white people, So and people will be like, well, what don't Muslims hate Jews? But the thing is, you look at a brown person, you look at a Muslim, and you're like, I don't see them as a threat. Jews don't see brown people as threats. They see white people as threats. That's why Jews don't mind brown. They tend to like brown people. They tend to not like white people. Not all cases, but there's validity to stereotypes. But anyways, so I wanted to destroy religion because I saw myself as Jewish and I saw religion as white supremacist and maintain the status quo and victim blaming. And I saw Jews as victims, right? So I wanted to, so I'll just give like a few more examples. So like my grandpa talked about like, the Buddhists, they would just carry water. And he said that, just carrying water is beneficial because it's a ritual, and rituals help take you outside of yourself. And, just carrying the water up and down stairs will take you out of yourself and helps you to transcend the self, right? Because just by performing that ritual, it takes your mind off of yourself, it helps you to stop thinking thoughts. Now I understand thoughts are shaped by the ego, shaped by the emotions, by the body, but you want to transcend the body to the flow, to pure awareness, and to transcend the self in the body. But at the time I didn't understand, but now I understand that. But when my grandpa's talking about like I said, when I was at Washington in 2020, I'm talking to my grandpa. I'm like, Grandpa, I'd like to talk to Dad. And my grandpa was like, well, your dad would maybe want to talk to you, but one thing, he'll never talk about basketball. I know that much. Your dad hates basketball. Well, my grandpa's stupid because my dad would not hate basketball. He doesn't hate basketball. What he hates is he destroyed my shot with the shoot-away machine, and he destroyed me, but he thought that it was something wrong with me, and he thinks that there was something wrong with me, and he wants nothing to do with me, but he doesn't realize that it was his fault. And now this is the fucking problem. Was my grandpa would be like, Ryan, never blame anybody. Don't blame. You can only take responsibility for yourself. You can't change others. You can only change yourself. And that to me, that was always stupid. And that made me more of a Marxist because I'm like, Grandpa, because then like I said, in high school, I'd be like, Mom, Dad, can you guys please help me? You can't change us, Ryan. You can't change us. We're never gonna change. You can't make things happen. We're not gonna help. Your dad's never gonna see you. When I'm in high school, I needed help with my shot, and Dad messed up my shot. So, Dad would come out and he'd shoot at me a little bit, but he'd be like, Ryan, shoot like this, put your foot like this. He told me to do the wrong thing, and then I'm like, and then he'd say, I give up. You suck now. He didn't realize that he's the one who's telling me to do the wrong thing. Oh, you suck now. And then I'd be like, Dad, I need your help. And my mom would be like, my mom made me live with my grandpa. And then I call my dad and Mom, can I please come home? You can't change us, Ryan. You can't change. You can't make things happen. You can't get your way. Because my grandpa would be like, Ryan, you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. You can only upgrade your software. It's not the self, it's your software, because there is no self. So, anyways, but I thought that made me more of a Marxist, because I was like, yeah, that's perfect, Grandpa. You just made things worse, because instead of trying to help my mom and dad to be more compassionate, be better people, I always felt like he was always on the side of the oppressor. He was always against the victim. And I always felt like that's a perfect thing to do to a victim. Say, you can't change others. And then that's a perfect thing for the people in power to be like, yeah, you can't change us. So we're going to continue to be evil. But I understand what my grandpa's saying, like, yeah, just work on yourself, upgrade your software and stuff, but that's stupid too, because you can influence other people. My grandpa could have talked to my mom and dad, but, my grandpa said, because I was talking to my grandpa when I was in Washington in 2020, and I'm like, Grandpa, but don't you realize that mom and dad misinterpret this as being like, they misinterpret your teachings. They're like, everything is fine, you can't change people, and then they interpret that as, yeah, Ryan, we can be as evil to you as you want, and you just have to accept it. And then my grandpa's like, yeah, well, I cast pearls to swine. I gave them answers to questions they didn't ask, and that was my fault. So I was like, okay, but you can, so you clearly understand that you can influence people. So why don't you try to influence them the other way to get them to talk to me and see me? Because I did really deep down, I wanted my mom and dad's support. I wanted their help, and I wanted to show my dad that I fixed my shot. And I want to, and I want their support, and I want to show him that, my mom and dad think there was something wrong with me. There wasn't something wrong with me. I want to talk to them, but my grandpa's like, yeah, well, I can't. I'm like, well, you can influence them the other way, Grandpa. You can influence them to see me. He's like, no, they have to ask the questions first. Either that or they have to go through so much pain that they will begin to ask questions. But I don't give answers unless questions are asked. But I'm like, Grandpa, that's stupid. But you admit that you gave them answers before they asked the questions, the answers that hurt me. So I was always like, my grandpa's just a victim blamer, conservative victim blamer, white supremacist. That's the way I saw him. So then, and like I said, I saw myself as Jewish and I was anti-white. So so was this my karma though? Was I responsible? Maybe it was my karma because I was anti-white. But anyways, so I'm trying to, I'm asking my grandpa, can I please, so I'm telling my grandpa, I feel like you're, because my grandpa's whole thing is like, if you work hard, you're part of the synergy, and that gets you outside of the self, and in creative projects, and that gets you outside of the self and transcend the ego to the flow. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, this is just white supremacy, this whole work hard thing. I'm like, that's just the conservative white supremacist thing of, yeah, just work hard. That's all that matters. Just work hard. I'm like, no. I discovered theory of everything. Why don't I just get some help? Why don't you guys just stop being idiots? And it's not all about working hard. Because in my mind, I was like, no, a lot of it has to do with, like, even with me when I was a great basketball player. It had to do with, because my dad helped me at first. Even though he would tell me to shoot sideways, but it was before the shoot away rack. So I would shoot sideways, but my left foot would be pointed out and everything was good. And it was because of my dad's help. So it's not just working hard. It's also having your, there's a lot of factors that lead to success. It's working hard. It's also having good support, good people, your family, stuff like that. And my grandpa understands that too. My grandpa admits that, but my grandpa's whole thing is like, oh, you can't change other people. All you can do is just, work on yourself and upgrade your software. That's all you can do. And now I understand what he means by upgrade your software, but at the time I didn't understand. But so I'm like, Grandpa, in my mind, he's just a white supremacist, like, work hard. And like I said, I wanted to undermine the Bible. So like when I read the Bible, like this is in 2013, I'll just give examples. Like I wanted to see it, Christianity is just a Darwinian trick to save the Jews and destroy the Romans. Because again, I didn't like white people. I saw Christianity as maintaining the white race, and I wanted to just destroy Christianity and save the Jews and destroy the white race. So, and I knew that Christianity and religion helped uphold the white race. So like, one example would be when like Peter, God comes to Peter and he says, Peter at first doesn't want to convert the Gentiles. And I was like, see, yeah, really, it's just Darwinism. Christianity was, Jesus really just came to save the Jews. And then so Peter was like, but then God comes and he shows Peter some food, some unclean food, and he says, kill and eat. And I was like, yeah, that was a metaphor of, Peter started to realize that Paul was going to convert the Gentiles in order to kill and eat them, to destroy them, to defeat them. So that's why they decided to convert the Gentiles. It was a trick to defeat the Gentiles, to save the Jews. Because Paul said, in the end, the Gentiles might not be saved, but the Jews will. And again, I wanted to invert everything and be like, and yeah, the Jews are always shown as bad, but the bad is good and the good is bad, because bad is closer to the flow, because the bad is nonconformity, and conformity is belief, and belief is not the flow. So really it's just everything's inverted. And that's why the Jews are always being bad, but then they always give a sacrifice, and then they're always saved. But the Gentiles who believe and are converted, they believe, but they're not in the flow, so they always end up being destroyed. And Paul even says that the Jews will be saved in the end, but maybe not the Gentiles. So I want to see anti-white. And I wanted to be like, so I wanted to think that being bad was actually good. Like almost like being bad is a marker that you're a Jew. So, and again, like it's because I want to see, because I always knew that the black people were more hypersexual, more bad, more criminals. But again, I want to be like, yeah, but that's just because the white man, but because the white man puts them in bad positions, and that's what, but I wanted to make them the good guys, because if you're bad, then you're actually good. Then that shows that you're more of a Jew, because the Jews are always bad in the Bible. So I want to make but the white people are good, but good is actually bad. And I wanted to invert everything. So, just like another example, that would be like, so, oh yeah, okay, so like, when Paul does convert some Gentiles, I forget their names, but he converts them and then he has them serving them. And I was like, see, they converted the Gentiles, but they didn't try to make them Jews, because I was thinking it was because they wanted to maintain the Jewish genes. Because I want to see things in a Darwinian sense, because I want to destroy religion and spirituality, because I thought the spirituality maintained the white race. So I was like, okay, it saves the Jewish genes to convert the Romans to pro-Jewish religion, which is Christianity. That would save the Jews, because Paul says, give the Jews material resources. So I was like, okay, so they convert these Gentiles, but then they make them into servants. Paul made them into servants, and he didn't try to make them into Jews, so he wanted to keep the Jews separate. So he made them into servants. And I was like, yeah, it's still just at its core Darwinism. And like, even when they convert the Ethiopian eunuch, they don't like bring him into the Jews. They send him back to Ethiopia. And I was like, yeah, they just converted him because, to make him Christian, so that he would be, go to a religion that's pro-Jewish. But he wanted to keep the Ethiopians separate from the Jews, because they wanted to maintain the genes. So, but my thesis was, yeah, the Bible is really just Darwinism, and Christianity was just was a Darwinian trick to save the Jews. But then my ultimate thesis was, okay, but the way that we save everything in the end is we get everybody to mix. Because now that we know that behind everything is just Darwinism, if we just mix all the races, then we'll stop all the different religions, and we'll stop all the division, and we'll have a utopia. But really, I just wanted to destroy the white race, because I saw the white race as evil. And because seeing myself as Jewish, I saw the white race as bad, because the white race just beat massacred the Jews throughout history, right? And I always saw the white race as bad, But my grandpa would say I wasn't in the flow. It was dualistic predator-prey software. That's why I wasn't able to see the truth, and that's why I saw things in a Darwinian lens. It was anti-religion. I wasn't able to see everything, as my grandpa says, as energy as one, at the spiritual lens. I was seeing in a material Darwinian lens, as people seeing things as separate things, as opposed to oneness consciousness, right? So, but that's the way I was. And so I wanted to see, so like I said, around like 2020, I'm hanging out with all these, a lot of Jews who are hippies, and these black guys, and like Haitian, and, just black people who are like, hypersexual, but they use spirituality, but really it's just an excuse for sense indulgence and doing drugs and hypersexuality and all that stuff. But again, I want to see the Jews as good, and the people of color is good, and the white people is bad. And as my grandpa said, Jesus says, be either hot or cold and not lukewarm. And I'm like, okay, yeah, the black people who are bad, and these Jews who are doing all these drugs and race mixing and all that stuff, they're cold. And that means that they're closer to Jesus, because he says either be hot or cold. So, because it's a left-handed path, and they can at least get themselves in trouble, and they can get in the flow. But I didn't really understand what the flow was still, But I'm like, they can still transcend the self, and actually being bad is closer to the flow. And again, I just misutilized my grandpa's teachings and didn't understand them. But so like one example of that would be the story of Indra in the Hindu. Like, I was studying the Hindu scriptures, right? And like Indra, Indra and the demigods, they're the Aryan race. They're the good guys. But the demons are the black people. They're the Dravidians, and they're the bad guys. But the Aryans, the white people, the demigods, they worship Vishnu, the god of preservation, and the demons, the black people, they worship Shiva, the god of destruction. And the idea is, either way, you can get into the flow. You can be saved through either way. So I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the bad black people can get in the flow. But, but like Indra, there's a story where Indra, he's the white Aryan, right? He accepts a garland, but he tries to act humble, but it wasn't authentic humility, and he was really arrogance. So then Vishnu allows Shiva and the demons to take over heaven, so he allowed the dark races to take over the light races. The Dravidians, the blacks, to take over the Aryans, the white people. So I'm like, yeah, to me this is like, yeah, anti-religion, yeah. The religious people, they're not really in the flow. It's inauthentic. They haven't really transcended the self. But the black people who are acting bad, they can get more in the flow. Because again, I just wanted race mixing. And in my mind, I'm like, but I didn't even realize I was basically Shukracharya. I was Satan because Shukracharya is the guru of the demons. And he's basically, Jesus says to the Jews, you guys are a synagogue of Satan, because they're anti-religious, right? And they're sinister. But, when I was a Marxist, I want to be like, when he called them the synagogue of Satan, what he was saying was that they weren't Marxists and they weren't communists like he is. But no, again, I was being satanic. Because, Marxism is, now I realize, because Shiva hates religion, and he's a Marxist, and he wants the dark races to overtake the light races, and Shukracharya, the guru of the demons, is on the side of Shiva, the god of destruction. And that's what Marx is on the side of. Even Marx's daughter married a black guy. But so that's what I wanted. I wanted to, I just wanted to see the white race destroyed. So I wanted to invert everything, and like, yeah, the white people who are religious, they're actually the bad guys. Because they're not really in the flow. That's conformity, and conformity isn't really transcendence of the self. And they act humble. They act like, so like, I'll give another example, but they're not really humble, I'll give another example. That would be like the story of Shiva, where Daksha means dexterity. So he would represent like religiosity, and he doesn't, and his daughter is Sita, the truth, or Sati. Sati means truth. She's supposed to marry Shiva. And Shiva is like the god of destruction, but he's the flow. But then Daksha, the god of dexterity, like religious rituals, he doesn't invite Shiva to the party. And then so Sati kills herself. And that's the idea. She throws herself into a fire. And that's where the Hindu women will throw themselves in fire if their husbands die. They're trying to emulate Sati. But my idea was, so what this represents is religious rituals, Daksha, if they're not, they can be performed, but if they're not with Shiva, which is the flow, which is, because Shiva and Vishnu are one, even though Shiva is a god of destruction, Shiva and Vishnu are one. So if you're not in the flow and you're performing the religious rituals, then you're not really transcending the self, and you're not in oneness consciousness. And so that, therefore, Shiva cuts off Daksha's head, kind of showing that the rituals without the flow are futile, right? And I'm like, yeah. It's all about the flow, but, the bad people could be more in the flow than the good people. Why did I want to see this? Because I want to be like, the Jews and the blacks, the people of color, they're the bad people, right? But it's really all the white people's fault. And really, the people of color, the oppressed, they're the closer to the flow. Because they might be doing bad stuff, but they're closer to the flow. Because nonconformity is closer to the flow. And they can get themselves in trouble, like my grandpa taught. But the people who are religious, they still believe that they're separate selves. And that's what Shiva in the Hindu mythology tries to do. He tries to destroy the Aryan Brahmins. He has the Dravidians try to destroy the Aryan Brahmins. And he tries to say like, they're idol worshippers. They worship the demigods and stuff. But then Vishnu saves him. He's like, hey, you can worship the demigods. Because the idea is you can be in the flow and you can worship idols as well. And you could, the dark races who are like the Muslims who don't worship idols, they're like, we've transcended the self. We're in the flow. We're the right ones. We don't have idols. But they could still be stuck in the self, and they could not be in the flow, But I understand that now. But at this time, I just wanted to. So I'm hanging out with all these Shiva worshipers, and these people are literal Shiva worshipers. They're literal Satan worshipers. They're basically like, a lot of Jews and darker races people, and they basically use religiosity. They will name their animals like Shiva, and they will worship Ganesha, and they're just like sense indulgence. Their spirituality is just sense indulgence. Like I'd go to some of their parties, and they would do a lot of rap music, and they would show like pornos of them like interracial black and white sex, and I'm sure that they were probably doing sex trafficking and stuff. A lot of Jewish guys who they love black guys, and they love to give black guys jobs in Hollywood, and it's just like it's degeneracy, but it's like P Diddy. It's like P Diddy parties, That's basically what it is. But a lot of Jews are involved, and it's Satan worship. And these people literally do worship Satan. They worship Shiva, but in their minds, the white man is evil. They're basically Shiva worshipers. The white man is evil, and they're bad, but they're they do drugs and they do sense indulgence, but they're doing the left-handed path, and they're actually closer to God. And it's really just all the white man's fault. And they're Satan worshipers. So, but I was hanging out with them because in my mind, I'm thinking that I understand my gravitations. And I'm like, they're closer to the flow, but I didn't really understand the flow and stuff. So I'll get to that.